in. Starting at number 10, we have the jinn. According to Islamic theology, jinn are invisible entities who roamed the earth before Adam, the first human being, was created. Now, they were created by God out of a mixture of fire or smokeless fire. There are many types of jinn, including those that can shapeshift, those that can fly, as well as ones that can resemble animals. And now it's been said that the jinn can see us, but we can't see them. And sometimes your pets can see them, so they start acting really strange, and they'd be staring at something, and you're like, what are you looking at? Having no idea that they can see a jinn. Now, what makes this even scarier is that sometimes jinn, depending on how they feel that day, can call out to you, and they can sound like one of your relatives or close friends. Then there's the recording angels. Karaman Ketibin, or the recording angels, are also another pretty scary thing in Islamic belief. Not that the beings themselves are scary, but what they do can sometimes leave a person terrified depending on what they actually do. So let me explain. So there's two types of recording angels, and they record everything that a person does. Like, I mean everything, and not just like an overview summary of what they did or said, but really a detailed, in-depth report. It's the ultimate biography. So if you think about it, you just look back into your life at all the bad stuff that you've done, whatever it may be, the Karaman Ketibin angels, yeah, they recorded it even though you thought no one saw you or thought no one heard you. And that's what makes this earn a spot on this list. Number 8, we have Dajjal. Now, Dajjal is known as the false messiah, so similar to Christian theology, and also known as like a liar or a deceiver. And in the Muslim world, believers say that he will create a lot of destruction by lies and having supernatural powers. Other religions know this as the Antichrist, who will deceive the entire world. Now, not just the fact that Dajjal is believed to be a master deceiver is what makes him creepy, but even the description of him and his appearance can give you nightmares. Like, Dajjal will be blind in one eye. In Islamic tradition, the Prophet Muhammad referred to Dajjal as Al-Awar, which means blind with one eye. Now, the Prophet Muhammad said that Dajjal's right eye would look like a floating grape, and its left eye will be defective in some way. Now, certain Islamic traditions, however, depict Dajjal having one eye. And the biggest fitna, or the testing period, in the history of humanity is associated with Dajjal. Yeah, that's pretty creepy. Next up, we have the Munkar and Nakir. Munkar and Nakir in Islamic belief are two angels who test the faith of people who pass away in their graves. According to Al-As-Sunnah, Munkar and Nakir ask a person who dies who is their Lord and what religion they follow and who is the Prophet. And a believer would answer these questions, but an unbeliever cannot answer them. Now, those who are deemed righteous will say, of course, Allah or God, and mention the Prophet Muhammad is a messenger, and they'll be allowed to rest in peace until the final day of judgment. But those who don't answer or answer differently, or who don't truly believe, will continue being punished like while they're passed away, waiting for the final judgment. Now, it's like that pre-punishment phase. You know, like when you do something really bad and your parents say to you, you know, wait till I get home to deal with you. And you know, that time that you're waiting for your mom or dad to get home to deliver whatever punishment they're going to be delivering, you know, sometimes that period is more punishment than the actual punishment. Now, it may not be that way in this scenario, but the idea that loved ones may not be actually resting in peace can be a pretty scary thought. Next up at number 6, we have the smoke. Okay, so among the major signs mentioned by the Prophet Muhammad is the smoke. And Muslims believe that God refers to this event in the Quran saying this: "Then wait you for the day when the sky will bring forth a visible smoke covering the people. This will be a painful torment." And that's in the Quran, Surah 44, verses 10 to 11. There's also a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad said, "Verily, your Lord has warned you concerning 3 matters. The smoke that overtakes the believer like a cold and overtakes the disbeliever and makes him swollen until it comes out of his ears." So just imagine for a moment, it's all pitch black, you can't see anything, and you're coughing, you're not able to breathe properly, and your body starts swelling up, and you're in so much pain, and you can't make it stop. Very creepy. Halfway into number 5, we have earthquakes. So we all know the effects that an earthquake can have, and what makes them so destructive is that no matter what structure you've built on land, it's no match for an earthquake. It definitely will collapse. Not to mention that earthquakes in large bodies of water are known to cause tsunamis. Now in the Hadith Bukhari volume 9 book 88 it says, "The hour will not be established till earthquakes will increase in number." So when you take a look at the stats, between the 11th century to the 18th century there have been 64 earthquakes, right? And in the 19th century there have been 47 earthquakes, and in the 20th century there have been approximately 319 earthquakes, and then in the 21st century there has been approximately 380 earthquakes. So earthquakes definitely vary in magnitude, and not all of them are deadly. However, Muslims believe that we are living in the end time signs right now, since the increase of earthquakes is believed to be a major sign of the end in Islam. Yet no one is certain how much more the frequency of earthquakes will increase, or even how much their severity will increase. Okay, moving on down to number 4, we have the angels of death. So let's get into this one. Naziat and Nashitat are two classes of death angels that are subordinate to Azrael, who is the archangel of death. Now these angels are responsible for taking the souls of those who pass away. Naziats are ordered to take the lives of unbelievers by force, and the Nashitats take their life away gently. So the question always is are you going to go swift and painless, or is it going to be slow and painful? That's a creepy thought. Number 3 brings us to Iblis. Now Iblis in Islam is the name of the devil, which is a counterpart to the Jewish and Christian Satan. Now he's a demonic creature, and he runs wild on humanity to spread evil and misery, and in some cases the name Shaitan is used to refer to Iblis specifically. Now at the time of creation, God ordered the angels to bow down in obedience before Adam, and Iblis refused, saying that he was better because he was created from fire and Adam was created out of clay. So because he acted so prideful and disobeyed God's commandments, God threw Iblis out of heaven, and his punishment was postponed until the day of judgment. And Iblis, who became the ruler of the jinn and also became a jinn himself, he tempts people to do evil. And according to some Islamic beliefs, apparently only animals like donkeys can see Iblis, and Iblis sometimes appear as a human form to carry out certain tasks like recruiting other followers. So yeah, you may run into someone on the street and could be the devil. Number 2 is jinn possession. So I spoke about jinn before, right, in this episode. Now it's one thing to see a jinn and to hear one, but it's another thing to be under the control of one. Now not all jinn are evil according to popular Islamic belief. However, the scariest thing about the jinn who are evil is that they can actually possess human beings. Oftentimes people who are possessed by jinns may not necessarily be in a whole lot of pain or look like how people look in the movies. However, individuals may get super angry or feel like they're forced to act in a certain way without being able to stop themselves. So exorcisms gotta happen. You gotta go through that whole process, and some possessions definitely are very violent, where people's eye colors change and other physical changes happen in their body. Definitely creepy. And the final scariest thing in the religion of Islam is hell, or Jahannam, is the ultimate punishment for non-believers. After the disbeliever is no longer under the punishment of Munkar and Nakir, their punishment will then continue in hell. But this time they'll be alive and fully able to experience their punishment. Hell is described as being extremely boiling hot, and the suffering will continue for disbelievers as long as God sees fit. And it's said that despite the intense physical pain experienced in hell, the worst of all the torments is people's separation from God. At number 10, we have the Houris. What are the Houris anyways? Well, they're described as beautiful maidens who await devout Muslims in paradise. There are numerous references to the Houris in the Quran, describing them as purified wives and spotless virgins. And according to Encyclopedia Britannica, some scholars actually give the Houris a metaphoric interpretation. It also has been suggested that the Prophet Muhammad actually reinterpreted angels that he saw in pictures of Christian paradise as being Houris. Moving on to number 9, we gotta look at Buraq next. Buraq is a creature in Islamic tradition that is said to be a mode of transportation for certain prophets. Most notably in the Hadith, we see accounts about the Isra and Miraj, and they state that Buraq carried the Islamic prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Jerusalem and up into the heavens and back in the same night. Now, Buraq
is described as a white animal, half mule, half donkey, with wings on its sides. And the word Barak actually translates to lightning or bright. Number 8 brings us to angels. And these are perhaps the most common supernatural creatures mentioned in Islam. And angels are real created beings, but are generally invisible like most others. They are not divine or semi-divine. Also, they aren't to be worshipped at all. They're just created beings. And angels, by nature, they submit to God and carry out his command without any question. Whatever God says to do, they just do it. And just to give you an example of the size of the angels, well, Jibril, also known as Gabriel, is the greatest angel, and he's said to have over 600 wings, and his height stretches from heaven to earth, and he can move faster than the speed of light, as all the angels can. As a matter of fact, angels are made out of light according to the religion of Islam. Marid comes in next at number 7. The Marid are considered the most powerful tribe of jinn, and the word Marid actually means rebellious. They are the classical genie-looking figures that we would see in movies and stories like Aladdin. You know, when they rub the lamp and the genie pops out to grant any wish that the person may have. And just like we've seen in pop culture depictions, well, Marid, they can change their shape, and they're said to have a lot of pride, and they want to show off to people a lot. Number 6 brings us to the Ifrit. And now these are a powerful type of jinn and are only mentioned once in the entire Quran. And in Islamic scriptures, the term Ifrit is always followed by the expression of the jinn. So we see that it's a type or class of jinn. The Ifrit are a very strong and cunning type of jinn, and they emerge as smoke from the ground, and they form into large winged demon-looking creatures that actually are said to bleed fire. They dwell in the underworld, which is a place of punishment for those that do evil. Ghouls are up next. A ghoul is a demonic creature that is said to inhabit burial grounds as well as other deserted and abandoned places. In ancient Arabic folklore, ghouls are a very evil class of jinn, and they were said to be the offspring of Iblis, also known as Satan, which, by the way, I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this episode. Ghouls are capable of changing form, but you can always spot one of them if you look for this specific sign. Well, they actually have hooves like donkeys, and they aren't able to change that aspect of their figure. Ghouls, they roam the desert, like I mentioned, and they often disguise themselves as attractive women that try to lure people away, and if they're successful, they actually go and eat them. According to the Hadith, an effective method of banishing ghouls is to recite lines from the Quran. Next up, I want to talk about the Shik and Nasnas. Shik is a lower form of jinn. It's sort of like a half creature or like half formed, and so they look very odd, and they apparently go after unsuspecting travelers. And you know, the interesting thing is that it's said that the Shik, they're able to mate with humans. And if they do, well, their offspring is known as a Nasnas, which look very similar to the Shik. Well, they're half Shik, half human. And these Nasnas, it's said that they originate from the Hadramaut region of Yemen. Some Nasnas are described as having wings like a bat. Number 3, I had to include the Qareen on this list. Now, the word in Arabic literally means constant companion. And Muslims believe that Allah assigned the Qareen to accompany every single human being that has been born and that will be born, and that is currently living on this planet right now. The Qareen push a person to do evil and disobey God's commands. So, just to clarify one thing, the Qareen, they're believed to incite humans to do evil through suggestions, but they can actually become good. And this has a lot to do with the good deeds of humans that influence the Qareen. For example, it is said that the Qareen of the Prophet Muhammad actually became a Muslim. However, it is uncertain whether or not any other Qareen besides those of the Prophet Muhammad actually have become Muslims or become good Qareen. Either way, we have 2 more creatures to look at. And number 2 leads us to the Dabba, also known as the beast of the earth. Before the end of time, there's going to be a beast that will come out from the earth, and this beast will tell the world to recognize Allah as the only God that exists. Now, the beast will wear what is known as the Ring of Solomon and carry the rod of Moses. Also, those who reject the message of the beast will have the word infidel written on their foreheads. Now, once the beast appears, it's not going to matter if a disbeliever then becomes a believer, because the time for you choosing your destiny, it's going to be gone. And this is according to a hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah. Now, in the Quran, it says this: "And when the word is fulfilled concerning them, we shall bring forth a Dabba from the earth to speak unto them, because mankind had no faith in our revelation." And that's found in Surah 27, verses 82. So this beast, by the way, is actually going to audibly speak to people. That's going to be a big surprise. And number 1 leads us to Iblis. Like I mentioned, Iblis was coming up in this episode. And Iblis in Islam is the personal name of the devil, which is the counterpart of the Jewish and Christian Satan. At the time of creation of the human beings, God ordered all of the angels to bow down before Adam. But Iblis was living amongst the angels, and he refused to bow down because he was made of fire. He's, by the way, a jinn in Islam, not an angel. So he's made of fire, and he was like, "No, I'm not bowing down to somebody that is not superior to me. I'm sorry." And because he acted so prideful and disobeyed a clear command of God, God threw Iblis out of heaven, and that was his punishment. But his ultimate punishment is postponed until the day of judgment. And Iblis, who became the ruler of the jinn, referred to as the shaitan, tempt people to do evil and has become the ultimate enemy of all of humankind. So starting off with number 10, this one was a very, very, very fascinating one. So we have the Hur'in, and these are female type beings in Islamic mythology. They're often associated with the 72 virgins referenced in the hadiths who await the devout Muslims in paradise. Now, there are numerous references in the Quran describing them as purified wives and spotless virgins. Some, however, say that it is a mistranslation of angels, or even metaphoric for the rewards one will receive in paradise, rather than being literal beings. At number 9, we have the Dabba. So the Dabba is referred to as the beast in the Bible, but in Islam it's generally taught that this is a creature that will appear during the end times and is one of the major signs of the day of resurrection. The role of the Dabba will be to distinguish the believers from the non-believers, and this beast will light up the faces of believers, and with a ring he will stamp and darken the faces of disbelievers. Buraq comes in at number 8, and the word Buraq translates to lightning or bright, and this is a creature in Islamic tradition that was said to serve as the transport for certain prophets. So the hadith says that the Buraq carried the Islamic prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Jerusalem and up to the heavens and back by nighttime. At number 7, we have the Qareen. So the Qareen is classified as a jinn type creature, although usually not actually a jinn, but Muslims believe that Allah has made them accompany every single human being, and the Qareen pushes a person to do evil things and to disobey Allah. So they have a pretty bad influence on people. Moving on to number 6, we have the Kiraman Katibin. Kiraman Katibin translates to honorable scribe, and these are 2 angels called Raqib and Atib that sit on the human shoulders, one on the right side, one on the left, and they literally write every single thing that we do. Good deeds and bad deeds, everything. You name it, they write it down. And on the day of judgment, they will present to God every single thing that they recorded a person doing. We've reached number 5, halfway in. We have the Sheikh. Now, the Sheikh is a lower form of jinn, and it's a half creature, or literally only half formed, and so they look very odd. They apparently go after unsuspecting travelers, and the Sheikh is also able to mate with humans, and if they do that, that offspring is known as a Nasnas, which looks very similar to a Sheikh, and I do not ever
think I want to see one of those. Not even I think, I know I'd never want to see one of those. Next up we got angels. So in Islam, angels are real created beings, but they're generally not able to be seen or heard by human beings, and they are not divine or semi-divine. They're not God's associates that manage different regions of the universe. Also, they're not to be worshipped or prayed to. All angels submit to God and carry out his commands without question. Now Jibril, or angel Gabriel, is the greatest angel, and he's said to have 600 wings that cover the sky. His height stretches from heaven to earth, and he can move faster than the speed of light, as all angels can do. Oh, ghouls come in at number 3. So ghouls are a demon or monster that feed on human flesh. Ugh. You can find these living in tunnels, underneath graveyards, and according to the hadith, an effective method of banishing ghouls is to actually recite lines from the Quran. These guys are vicious, they're just evil and nasty creatures. And number 2 brings us the Ifrit. And Ifrit is a powerful type of demon, and they are only mentioned once in the Quran. In Islamic scriptures, the term Ifrit is always followed by the expression of the jinn. So the Ifrit are a strong and cunning class of jinn, and they emerge as smoke from the ground and form into large winged demon creatures that bleed fire. They're from the underworld, which is a place of punishment for evildoers. And at number 1, we have Iblis. So Iblis in Islam is a personal name of the devil, which is the counterpart of the Jewish and Christian Satan. At the time of creating human beings, God ordered all the angels to bow down in obedience before Adam, the first man created. Now Iblis refused to do this, claiming that he was a much better being since he was created of fire and humans were made from clay. So for acting so prideful and disobeying God's command, God threw Iblis out of heaven, and his punishment, however, was postponed until the day of judgment. Iblis, who became the ruler of the jinn, who are also referred to as Shaitan, tempt people to do evil things.